Contraception and birth control in general have had huge impacts on our society. Let's take a look at what Margaret Sanger intended these effects to be. Birth control, in philosophy and in practice, is the destroyer of that dualism of the old sexual code. It denies that the sole purpose of sexual activity is procreation. The philosophy of birth control says that procreation is not the sole purpose, which, as I keep saying, it's not. But the practice of birth control says that procreation has no purpose whatsoever. Now, it's not saying that it could never be a purpose, but in practice, when you are using contraceptives and having sex, you are denying that child has any purpose in that particular union in which you are currently engaged. Therefore, you are denying that procreation has any sort of purpose in that union. So what happens when contraception is switched from an agent of procreation to one of merely recreation? Sex becomes no longer exclusive to marriage. When the result of sex was usually a baby, you generally wanted to wait until you had a partner that you knew would be with you for life, to help you, to support you, to raise the child with you. But when the point of it is not a baby anymore, but instead it's just like a really good feeling, why are you going to wait till you're married to have that really good feeling? You're not, so you can have sex outside of marriage. This is obviously going to devalue marriage because, why bother with marriage? So you're going to have tons of infidelity, divorce rates, out-of-wedlock relationships. This also increases out-of-wedlock births and teen pregnancies, which skyrocket unemployment rates and poverty. There is no stability, no permanence, and so society unravels. It's very clear in her writing that Margaret Sanger considered the lowest common denominator of society, the foundation of it all, not to be the family, but sexual expression. As we can see, that is not the greatest foundation. Let's think about it in terms of an analogy. Again, with my microscopic science, the family is like a covalent molecule. The atoms in this molecule are physically bound together, not just sort of as a magnetic attraction as they are in ionic molecules, but they are actually sharing ions, sharing part of themselves, and thus becoming one fused unit. Take a whole bunch of these nice fused units and you have a great platform on which to build. And obviously there are stronger or weaker bonds, just there are stronger and weaker families, but in general, it's a pretty good foundation. Society today is like just a pool of atoms. Two atoms can come together in an ionic molecule, bound just by mutual attraction, and dance together for a little while. But as soon as another atom comes along with a higher attraction than the one that you're currently engaged with, then you're just gonna switch right over to the other one, and your bond dissipates. It's a constant fluctuation and shifting, and any sort of society that's gonna be based on that is gonna be incredibly weak indeed, if it even survives at all. So let's rehash for a second here. Contraception denies that procreation is the purpose of sex, which means that people have sex outside of marriage, which devalues marriage, which causes all sorts of problems for the emotional, psychological, physical, and relational health of society. But it doesn't end here. Contraception in the long run doesn't only devalue marriage, it devalues the sexual act itself. If it's only for recreation, then it's all about having a good time. And there right then you have this huge industry about how to make your sex life better, how to make it more enjoyable, and then things get seriously perverted. Porn skyrockets, as do prostitution and sex trafficking. Obviously the rate of rape is going to be affected as well. And if it's all about making you feel good and have the most enjoyable sex that you can, who's to say you can't have sex with a couple people at the same time? Or a member of your same gender, or an animal, or a child, and then it just spirals into perversity and madness. It's really kind of sad, but Margaret Sanger seemed to think that contraceptives would help women be more respected. Here's the continuation of a quote of hers that I had at the beginning of this video. It denies that the sole purpose of sexual activity is procreation. It also denies that sex should be reduced to the level of sensual lust, or that woman should permit herself to be an instrument of its satisfaction. And yet we see firsthand that sex has been reduced to so many forms of lust, and women are so much more objectified now than they used to be. They're so much more the instruments of the satisfaction of lust. And far from being free to choose, a girl is faced with a lot of pressure nowadays to have sex even if she doesn't want to. And a typical guy will nowadays expect her to give that to him, and she will feel like she doesn't have a choice if she ever wants to be loved. And that's because our idea of love has been so skewed that we're searching for it and we can't find it because we're searching for it in all the wrong places. It's just all really screwed up. And if that's not common sense to you already, then just look at what Planned Parenthood has to say. This is a little reminder on their website for the young people who are going to be searching. Keep in mind that sex is not the only way people can get to know each other. Sex play is also not the only way couples can be close. People get closer as they build trust by talking, listening, sharing, being honest, respecting each other's thoughts and feelings, enjoying one another's company. This is so depressing that Planned Parenthood had to put this in the place where all the contraceptive stuff was, because it is not common sense anymore, because people are so confused. And that's society's fault. And the reason society is like this is because contraception and really the whole sexual revolution in general has so skewed our ideas of love that we don't even know what to look for anymore. So thanks a lot, contraception. I never liked you in the first place.